a new online privacy bill that's aimed at protecting the children. Aren't all the bills about protecting the children? Might actually be a threat to your civil liberties. Joining us now to discuss from the Taxpayers Protection Alliance is David McGarry, making his first time on the show. Good morning, David. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
We appreciate you, David. So tell us a little bit about this online privacy bill, what it's aimed at doing and what it might actually end up doing.
Yeah, so online privacy has become a little bit of a cause du jour in Congress these days. And the bill that you were referring to is called the Kids Online Safety Act. And the most concerning provision in this bill, as far as I'm concerned, is one that would essentially establish a duty of care on platforms to mitigate all sorts of harms to children. And this goes from everything from mental illness to other psychological harms. And basically, the bottom line is there's absolutely no way to effectively mitigate these harms and avoid liability, which is a really important thing here, without cracking down on all sorts of legal speech and all sorts of protected speech. And while platforms do have a First Amendment right to moderate content, the government does not, and is in fact barred by the First Amendment from forcing platforms to do that.
So what are the concerns that Congress is listing as the reason for this bill? What are kids actually being exposed to online that parents might have an actual legitimate concern of?
Sure. So there's as I said, there's a very wide-ranging set of concerns. We've seen some reporting that kids have been able to get themselves into some very nasty content, either around mental health things, around fitness, ranging into eating disorders. We've seen some concerns about kids being able to find content related to sex and drugs, and oh no, rock and roll as well. But I think that these problems are unquestionably solved best by parents. And parents actually have a lot of tools these days, and their toolkit is actually ever growing as technology companies respond to this demand for more kid protections for kids. But instead, what Congress is proposing to do is insert the government into this process in a way that, as you said, threatens civil liberties for not only kids but Americans of all ages.
Steffi, kids having access to some of this content online, is definitely impacting them negatively, wouldn't you say?
I mean, so the government, again, is trying to parent the parents.
Right.
When parents really should be parenting their children on their own. So, I mean, is this really just kind of like a child safety lock that the government is trying to do? Like when they go on a platform, let's say the kid is on YouTube, are they supposed to like fill out some form saying that they're under 18? It's like, how do we know when a kid is on these platforms?
Exactly. How would they implement something like this?
Well, that's the part B of the First Amendment violation. The only effective way to verify someone's age is, well, to do just that, to verify their age, and that usually requires the user to submit various kinds of either biometric data or also government identification. So that could look like uploading a copy of government ID or something. And the real problem with mandated age verification is that it cannot be done only for children online, right? Because you don't know how old the user or the prospective user is until you verify their age. So therefore, any kind of mandated age verification is going to require users of all ages, both a child and adult, to essentially hand over not only their anonymity, but incredibly sensitive personal data to all sorts of platforms and just websites, depending on which proposal we're talking about.
Appreciate that. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. Make sure that you click that like button. Help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty and fight back against big tech censorship. Small shows like these get crushed all the time because not only does the mainstream media fear us, but big tech doesn't like what we say here on these kinds of platforms. And since we are libertarians and libertarian Republicans here, we are definitely in their sights. And we don't always have the resources to fight back. So we need your help, and you can help us for free. Again, click like. And if you enjoy the content that you're watching, subscribe to the channel. Every Monday through Friday, the Wake Up America show is brought to you live, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. And since it's Friday, we have a special day where my lovely wife, Stephanie Petersen, is joining us. She is a social worker and a licensed social worker and a therapist. And me, I'm just, well, a raggedy old former musical theater major. Not much in my career or my past. David McGarry, though, he's got an exciting career as a policy analyst at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. And he's joining us right now to talk about a new online privacy bill that's aimed at protecting children, but which could end up violating all of our First Amendment rights. So does the bill have any chance of passing, David? Is there any popular movement against it? What needs to be done for more people to learn about what this bill is about? And what's the next steps, would you say?
Yeah, so this bill has actually been introduced in previous Congresses, or I should say the previous Congress. I think it is becoming more and more popular with senators and representatives pretty continuously. So I think that something that something that gets underrated in these conversations is that both voters and Congress people oftentimes look at the online world as something that's accessory to or a bonus to the real world, when, as I think most of us know, as just going through our daily lives, being online is just a part of quote unquote real life. And introducing all sorts of burdensome regulations that can stifle innovation, stifle markets, stifle speech online is really no different in principle from doing those exact same things to the meat space. And actually, just
Meat space?
something I
Did
thought
you say
of.
meat? Did you say meat space, David?
I did.
Okay, well, you can't just say something
What
that's
does meat space mean?
meaning that real life, or because we're all meat.
Oh,
You can't
okay.
just say a funny line like that, David, and then just expect to move on and not have at least let us push the laugh track button there. Meat space.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was.
David, in your piece, you write that the duty of care would arm anti-free speech crusaders at the FTC. Some observers have even lately suggested online platforms ought to bear liability for gun violence, terrorist activity, and children's mental health issues. Can you speak to that?
Certainly. So the bill would arm states' attorneys general and the FTC with the power to go after non-compliant platforms, meaning platforms that are allowing speech that they think is harmful to children. So in practice, this means that someone like Letitia James in New York could decide that some sort of pro Second Amendment or pro gun speech or just generally right wing speech contributes to gun violence, and then seek or take a legal action against platforms that do not censor that information.
Right. It's like, who can say what's appropriate for kids and what's not? Because I know some parents think, for example, like, oh, you can bring your kids to drag queen bingo, right? So it's like, should kids be able to watch drag queen stuff online? Some parents say yes, some parents say no. So it's
Right. Like there's
who's making the rules?
right, like there's big government proponents, I'm sure, on both sides of the whenever bipartisanism comes down, it's always like we're going to get screwed. So Republicans could say, oh, well, we're going to prevent the kids from seeing the drag kids online, and the Democrats are going to say, oh, we're going to prevent them from watching the AK gun guy's latest gun fails video.
The initial intentions are we're trying to protect kids, which is a nice premise. But it's like, how to go about that? Is it even possible?
I'm not sure. David, is there anything else about this that you think people ought to know?
I'll say that I know a lot of folks on the right these days are very upset at big tech, and with a lot of good reason. However, I think that the urge to take that frustration and to channel it into regulation is misplaced, because what we really want is the freest, most competitive market that will promote innovation and promote alternatives to the products that we find lacking. And the more that you slap on regulation, the more that you artificially create liability, the more that you're going to create a regulatory environment in which only the established, massive, currently incumbent big tech platforms will have the excess resources to navigate.
Cannot disagree with you there. David, anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go? Any plugs? Let us know your socials.
Follow me on Twitter at David B. McGarry. You can find all of my writing and some of my other random thoughts there as well.
There we go, David B. McGarry. Thank you very much for joining us on Friday and for letting us know about this bill. Keep us updated on that, will you, David?
I will do it, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. What did you think of David McGarry? I think he did a good job there.